Okay, good morning from Maryland Business Roundtable for Education. Once again, I am Tashe Williams, Program Coordinator for Next Generation Scholars in Wicomico County. And this is another edition of Coach Tashe on Tuesday with our special guest, Rudy Ruiz. How are you doing today, Rudy?
Hey, Tashe, I'm doing great. Glad to be here with you.
Thank you so much. And very special day for me because not only has Rudy accomplished some amazing things in his and throughout his years of schooling and education, but he is also a former colleague of mine. And so it's always great when people come back and we can have a conversation with them. So please, Rudy, very quickly, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, thanks, Tashe. I appreciate that. Yeah, my name is Rudy Ruiz. I'm a partner with a group called 4 Point Education Partners. We work with school districts and communities around the country to help middle and high school students primarily get more prepared for college and career options, a lot like MBRT does. And so glad to continue collaborating with you all. And I live just near the MBRT office in Central Maryland. But like I said, having the opportunity to work with more and more communities in different parts of the country as well.
Awesome. That's good stuff. And a lot of times when I have somebody on for our sessions for Coach Tashe on Tuesday, there are a lot of people who have some kind of athletic background. So if you can just share a little bit about your background in education and athletics, kind of like maybe starting from the high school age.
That sounds great. Yeah, primarily throughout really my life, but even in terms of starting at the high school level, most of my athletics has been in the sport of wrestling. So I've been involved at a lot of different levels. And so by the time I started high school, I actually had quite a bit of experience. My home state of Wisconsin has quite a lot of youth wrestling. So I got started quite young. But even though I had that experience, it was challenging getting started in high school. I had the opportunity to be a varsity wrestler as a freshman, which was great. But I only weighed 88 pounds, and the lowest weight class is 103. So oftentimes looked like David and Goliath out there. If a 103-pound person could ever look like Goliath, that was one of those matches.
All right, and so you got into that, and then you were fortunate enough to be able to continue your wrestling career at a very prestigious university academically and athletically, the University of Stanford. Tell us a little bit about your time there as a student athlete.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like you said, through high school and through goal setting and putting in work and getting good coaching and support, had a lot of opportunities to look at where I wanted to study and continue in my academic and athletic career, and really felt at home when I went out to California. I actually happened to have been born in Southern California, didn't grow up there, grew up in Wisconsin, like I mentioned, but I felt at home not only because I happened to have been born in the state, but really because I saw that there were so many other Hispanic students, so many students of color, and I really felt very welcome on the campus, which got me excited about the opportunity to make that my selection. And so again, as a freshman in college, had the opportunity and earned the varsity spot even as a freshman, but definitely challenged me to step up my game going from the high school level to the college level.
Absolutely. And so for some of our young people who are tuning in today, and I know this is something that I speak a lot as a coach now and as a former college athlete, time management, right? Because you are going to be either at practice or you're going to be studying all the time. And coming from such a prestigious university to where the academic expectations are so high, how did you handle your time management between being elite college athlete and a high achieving student?
Yeah, great question, Tashe. Time management definitely is one of the biggest transitions for all students starting college, and I think that being a student athlete oftentimes helps because it kind of limits your options, and you have really to kind of schedule in a way that allows you to do all the things that you want to do in terms of your responsibilities primarily. And so in terms of putting in training and competitions, the NCAA, of course, has limitations to make sure that you do have the opportunity to study and do your schoolwork and kind of have a bit of a life. But it really is like, you could say, somewhere between, you know, part-time and a full-time job in terms of the hours that you're putting in. And I think that one insight I would share is that beyond just time management, discreetly, I think even at a level above that, it's really about self-management. And so self-management includes time management, but it also takes into account different factors that include your health and your mental health, and making sure that you're in a good place. And as a college freshman, that's really critical because there are so many changes that you're going through at once. Oftentimes, like in my case, being far from home, being in a new environment, having to make new friends and connections and figure out your support system. And so all those things can be a challenge, but it's really important to take that step back and think about, you know, what you need for your mental health, to have things in order. And oftentimes that does mean having to limit some of the other things that you might do if you weren't having a big commitment like that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I totally understand where you're coming from. Rudy, how has being a former athlete, and you were also a former coach as well, how has that helped you translate into your profession and becoming an award-winning educator? So how did that work? I mean, and what were the things that you took away from being an athlete and a coach to make your education career so successful?
Yeah, I think I've been continuing to learn and see, you know, what were those transferable skills that continued to serve me well as I moved into being a young professional and to getting my career started, and being able to kind of move up in that regard as well. And so I think one topic that people talk about a lot, which was definitely true for me, was the importance of goal setting. Going back for a second to the high school level, you know, I mentioned starting out small. My freshman year in high school, I had a losing record, but I did qualify for the state tournament, won a couple matches. My goal my sophomore year was to win the state title, and I was able to do that. And winning a state title as a 10th grader, sometimes, you know, folks can have a hard time figuring out how do you continue to move to the next level. So my junior year set the goal to be undefeated that season, which I did. And then my senior year, I set pretty outrageous goal for the sport of wrestling, which was that nobody would even take me down the entire season. And you know, hadn't really heard of anybody doing that before, but I figured, you know, I want to keep raising my game. I have to step it up somehow. And so was able to get quite close to that. There was one point in the about the middle of the season where I had my nose broken in practice. Training partner elbowed me in the nose and broke my nose. So a couple of days later, when we had our big tournament, I had to wear a mask. And so when I was peeking out of those little eye holes, and then the guy dropped down, you know, a couple guys took me down one time, and those are the only two takedowns I gave up the whole season. So
That is
goal
awesome.
setting served me well there, and it continues to serve me well now. And then I think another one too is just, you know, resilience, being able to push through when you're having struggles, but also not necessarily doing that on your own, but getting, like I said, the coaching and support you need to be able to move through challenging situations.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that setting goals is so overlooked at times.
Mhm.
That's been going on, and I think if you talk to any sports psychologist or anyone like that, they would kind of relay that same message. Setting goals is so you know, important to a young student athlete. I had the same thing. I set goals. I had a sports psychologist, strangely enough, when I was in high school, and he told me to write my goals down. He said,
Mhm.
put them right in front of your right before you leave your bedroom door, so you can see them every day. And
Mhm.
so, same type thing with me. So that is amazing. What what education would a person need to do what you're doing right now? Because I know also not only are you doing all these amazing things educationally, but you're back, you know, in school. You're completing your doctoral degree in education. So what would a young person or any person need to do to be in a position like you are right now, education wise?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So right now, what I'm primarily doing is advising school district leaders, sometimes school leaders, and even community leaders, including folks at mayor's offices and even at the state level in some cases. And so in a lot of those situations with those opportunities, of course, they do want to see that you've had some experience leading some of that work successfully. But in terms of the educational aspect of it and what is expected, like you mentioned, I did have the first 8 years of my career was actually in the classroom as a classroom teacher at the high school level, teaching math primarily, but also a little bit of computer science. And then I got involved in school leadership as an assistant principal, and then eventually working at a central office for a school district out in Wisconsin, Milwaukee Public Schools, and then Baltimore City Public Schools before joining the Maryland Business Roundtable for Education. And so I think I mentioned on the last time we chatted, somebody I know who has a more kind of a direct trajectory toward what I'm doing right now is actually a current college intern that I have working with me, Tamir, who is based in Philadelphia, working in, or excuse me, attending American University right now as a rising junior. So he's studying education and public relations, and then he plans to go into teaching, and then he has a goal to be a superintendent as well. So he's on a very direct path, in some ways kind of following in my footsteps. So for folks interested in education, of course, getting that background is critical, and getting in the classroom is great as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this has been an amazing session. And Rudy, I thank you so much. I remember the first time I met you at MBRT, I pulled Nona, who was my supervisor, to the side after meeting you. And I'm like, that's a really bright dude. And and so just having the opportunity, for you to come and share some of your experiences within athletics and education with some of our young next generation scholar students is amazing. And before we sign off, do you have any advice to future college athletes, or just any thing else on the way out that from this conversation that you'd like to share for these young people?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you as always, Tashe, and to have a chance to speak a little bit of words of wisdom to the youth. And I think closing words that I would share have to do with just remembering where you came from. In terms of where I grew up. I grew up in a low-income household in the inner city of Milwaukee, and as a Hispanic male, research has shown that I literally had less than a 1% chance of becoming successful by traditional measures, as I have. And so not only was education important, but also, like I said, that support system that I had around me. And so I think as I do my work now and try to support communities and students who are in circumstances like I was, I think it's always important to remember, where you came from, both in terms of your background and giving back, but also thinking about what you've overcome, and knowing that even though you might be facing a new challenge that might seem intimidating, that you can do it. So I would encourage all the youth who are listening in to never give up.
Awesome. Great words of wisdom. Great sign off. And once again, Rudy, thank you so much for being with us today, buddy. Always a pleasure to speak with you. And for our young people, please don't forget to download our Way to Be apps to learn about college career, many other exciting things. So on behalf of MBRT, Next Generation Scholars, from our Way to Be at Home series, and myself and Mr. Rudy Ruiz, thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tashe. Take care.
You got it.